Yeah, you know, for far too long, I think we've been told, us MAGA conservatives, that we've been in a cult. And I sort of feel like I am leaving this cult because as soon as you think for yourself and have common sense and question the narrative, you're ostracized. Look at Tucker Carlson. Look at Thomas Massey. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. Look at Candace Owens. Look at myself. You know, as soon as you go against the cult leader, which I think Trump is the cult leader, then you all of a sudden are ostracized from the party.
When millions of corporate dollars flood an election, establishment media expects you to fall in line. They spent over $30 million trying to crush Dr. Abdul El Sayed in Michigan's Senate primary, framing his progressive, anti-war platform as a radical threat. But the voters saw through the fear-mongering, rejected the Super PAC C money, and handed the donor class a historic loss. Now, watching the aftermath unfold on live television, we aren't just seeing panic on the left's establishment wing. We are seeing conservative panelists explicitly admit that the MAGA movement has turned into a cult. I'm Neil. This is The Honest Perspective. Real receipts, no corporate spin. Let's get into it.
A Democratic primary in Michigan wouldn't ordinarily make international news. But there's nothing ordinary about the victory of Abdul El Sayed. The progressive candidate for the US Senate overcame $30 million AIPAC onslaught and a wall of opposition from the supposed Democrat leaders. In this apparent battle for the future of the Democrats, the anti-establishment, anti-war, anti-Israel wing looks like it's currently winning big. Well, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey and Joe Kent are betting they can do the same thing on the right, as Joe Kent told me on Monday. But while the progressive base wants El Sayed's victory to be a David and Goliath story, Trump's Republicans say it will not have a happy ending.
I think it's crazy because they're going to ruin our country. They want to, I don't know if they want to. I think either they're very naive or they actually want to ruin the country. No matter where you look, go back 1,000 years with different names, anybody doing what they're doing and what they're espousing, everything turns out to ashes and junk and filth. You know, one thing I said the other day, for the first time ever, never thought of it, but you go to these cities that are taken over by the socialists and the communists, they're always filthy dirty, they're disgusting, they're always dirty, and you know, I'm a clean person, and people I know are clean, they like that, and you are, I know you very well, you're very clean, but they're, aside from crime, aside from all of the other problems, no jobs, no anything, no money, they're always filthy, disgusting, dirty. And that's what you'll get.
Well, hygienic or not, the Republicans are stuck with the least popular war in US history and all of its associated impact on American wallets. Their response so far has been to play the greatest hits all at the same time.
Cancel Thanksgiving, they want to cancel Christmas. Look, these communists hate America. They hate capitalism. El Sayed is also an Islamist, as is Mondami. And look, you see the green-red convergence where the communists and the Islamists, they want Sharia law, they hate Jews, they hate Christians, they hate capitalism, they hate America. All of this is coming together in a way that is really a toxic, toxic stew.
Well, that's the line, and they're sticking to it. The influential think tank boss Mark Dubowitz said today that Islamists and communists have found common cause. Israel will survive, our republic may not. Congressman Brandon Gill warned of civilizational suicide. Democrats tried and failed to stoke a frenzy about fascism in the last presidential election. Running on Save Our Country from Communism feels like the same thing. Well, defending a status quo that people are unhappy with by warning that it could get even worse is rarely a winning formula. We saw that in the UK with Brexit. The US saw it twice with President Trump. And unless something big changes soon, he's about to be defeated by his own game.
Notice the immediate panic script from right-wing commentary. The moment a candidate wins on a platform of healthcare, corporate accountability, and stopping military escalation, the attack line isn't about policy. It's calling them communists and Islamists. They try to scare voters away from substance because they know their own donor-driven agenda has nothing to offer the working class. But as the panel breaks down, that distraction strategy completely falls apart.
Let me just talk to you, Omar, if I may, about this extraordinary win by Abdul El Sayed in Michigan, which is a clear, as you've put in your post, a defeat for AIPAC. You said the billionaire and special interest class that casually buys elections in America got together and spent an unprecedented $62 million to smear el-Sayed, outspending him 10 to 1, and mobilized the entire Democratic Party establishment to sink him, and he still won. And that is indisputable. That is what happened. Do you think he can actually become senator, though? Because the sort of big picture view here is that you're getting a real rise of this progressive hard left, for want of a better phrase, socialist progressive hard left, but that it can't be an electoral winner on the national stage, and that actually the Democrats may be pushing themselves into a trap here which suits the Republicans come a general election. Do you share that concern?
You know, Piers, just looking at what has happened last night, it really is difficult to overstate how significant that is. What we're seeing right now is a cataclysmic shift in American politics altogether and American political discourse. That you have, it is standard that the billionaire class and AIPAC and others essentially bully people and get election outcomes that they choose. It is very common that the billionaire class and super PACs and so on can actually, if they decide to put a target on somebody's back, make sure that they end their political career and get their outcome. And the fact that they have come together in a way that is so overwhelmingly concentrated, I mean, they wanted to make sure that they went all out in this case to defeat Abdul el-Sayed, and they were not able to. That is very, very significant. It's a sign that voters are fed up with politics as usual. It is a sign that people are now awake. They don't want to put up any more with their money being spent on a genocide instead of serving them, because that is effectively what Abdul's message was all along. It wasn't anything particularly radical, you know, when you hear about left or whatever. It is really basic common sense policies that he was advocating for. He wants health care for people in Michigan. He wants better access to education, better services for people, and doesn't want American money to be spent on a stupid war abroad in Iran and supporting a genocide against the people of Gaza. That's basic elementary common sense, and people are not going to put up with the fact that this is what American policy has been for a long time. Now, when you think about the general election against a Republican, essentially what you have is a campaign of substance by Abdul Sayed, and you have, on the other hand, essentially a campaign of smears by Mike Rogers. So I don't know what the ultimate outcome is going to be. Nobody knows, obviously. But that is effectively what we have. You have Mike Rogers recently at an interview being asked about his position on the Iran war, says his constituents have not raised it, so he doesn't really know where he stands on it. Asked about tariffs, it's the same thing. Asked about Trump's corrupt slush fund, where Trump wants to give American taxpayers money to the people who rioted on January 6th to overturn a legitimate election in which Trump has been defeated. And also, Mike Rogers doesn't know what his position is on that. So you have somebody who's completely lacking in substance, and all he goes for is essentially accusing Abdul Sayed of being a communist. It's a smear. It is utterly baseless. It doesn't mean anything. And what we're going to find out come the general election is whether a general campaign of smears is going to work or whether the people of Michigan are going to be focused on substance. We are going to find out together in a couple of months.
Omar Bader nails the core mechanism here. The donor class tried to buy an election outright, outspending a grassroots movement 10 to 1, and they failed. Voters didn't reject the establishment because of radicalism. They rejected it because they are tired of seeing their tax dollars funneled into overseas military campaigns and corporate patsies while healthcare and education languish at home. But watch what happens next, because the breakdown isn't just happening inside the Democratic establishment.
Okay, Carrie Pugin-Boller, welcome back to Uncensored. At the same time that you've got this real split in the Democratic Party, you also have the same thing happening on the sort of Maga conservative right. And, you know, tonight Tucker Carlson has teased he's going to reveal his plans for what is at the very least, a new movement, and could even potentially be a new party. You know, we had Joe Kent on my show on Monday, who was part of this picture with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey and others, where it looks like they are creating something new anyway. We don't know quite what that will look like. You posted on 3rd of August, MAGA was a scam, the billionaire pretending to care about the forgotten man and woman. Trump has become a slave to a foreign terrorist state who hates Christ. He chose Epstein over America. So would you be tempted to join? I mean, say Tucker announces a new party. Do you think the mood is right now for a new party? Do you think that, as many people see it, that Trump's betrayal of the Maga ethos has led to this inevitable split on the conservative right. And there is an opportunity for somebody very charismatic, a lot of followers like Tucker to come forward and lead something new.
Yeah, for far too long, I think we've been told, us MAGA conservatives, that we've been in a cult. And I sort of feel like I am leaving this cult, because as soon as you think for yourself and have common sense and question the narrative, you're ostracized. Look at Tucker Carlson. Look at Thomas Massey. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. Look at Candace Owens. Look at myself. As soon as you go against the cult leader, which I think Trump is the cult leader, then you all of a sudden are ostracized from the party. And so I think we as MAGA conservatives, we still are conservatives. We still hold firm to our principles, but we are no longer a part of this cult where, it just feels that way. And so we are skeptical, I think. It feels like we are coming out of an abusive relationship. That's just how I feel. And so we are skeptical on jumping into a new relationship with someone new. But I think someone like Tucker Carlson, Thomas Massey, Joe Kent, Marjorie Taylor Greene, those are the people that we're leaning towards. Those are the people that we are seeing, oh, you guys were canceled, you guys were barred. So sign me up. I'm willing to support that.
Okay. Clay Travis, when Tucker left Fox News, you posted, Tucker Carlson is a stud talent. He has a ton of incredible options. It will be fascinating to see which he takes. Now, if he starts a third party and runs against President Trump, for example, or whoever the Republican candidate is in 2028, would you still see him as a stud talent?
Yeah, I think he is a unique, strong media talent. I think you, Tucker, I think there are a lot of people you can point, Megyn Kelly, who have proven that you don't have to be a member of a big organization to have a tremendous impact. I mean, the way that I always described it is, I think we've moved from an era where the name on the front of the jersey matters far less than the name on the back of the jersey. And certainly I like to think with Outkick and potentially what I'm going to do going forward, there's a lot of opportunities out there in the new media marketplace. Look, if Tucker decides to run for president, or Thomas Massey runs for president, or Marjorie Taylor Greene runs for president, I think it's going to be very difficult to get past J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or whatever the overall Ron DeSantis. I think there are a lot of people out there, Ted Cruz, that are going to toss their hat in for the 2028 race. And I think that's good. Look, I'm a marketplace of ideas guy. Make your case, put your ideas out there. People thought when Donald Trump came down the escalator in 2015 that he was an insane man and that he had absolutely no future at all in the Republican Party. And he has remade it in many ways. We'll see to what extent the Trump imprimatur is continuing to have a major impact going into 2028. But I think everybody who believes they have the right vision for America on the Democrat, Republican side, on the independent side, I think they should all toss their hats in the ring. Let's have a big, fertile debate without any incumbent president in office. And let's see who the best man or best woman is. So
what Carrie Prejean-Boggs said on live national television is the exact mechanism driving this political moment. When a conservative panelist looks at the camera and compares staying loyal to Donald Trump to coming out of an abusive relationship or remaining inside a cult, the narrative that the MAGA coalition is an unbreakable monolith dissolves. Look at what actually happened in Michigan. Outside super PACs, led by AIPAC's United Democracy Project, poured over $30 million into backing Haley Stevens, making it the single largest PAC intervention in a primary election this cycle. Across all corporate-aligned groups, the total spending opposing Abdul El-Sayed reached over $60 million. Establishments from both parties insisted that an anti-war, corporate-free campaign could not win a statewide primary in a crucial swing state like Michigan. Yet El-Sayed secured the nomination by putting simple, material demands at the center: Medicare for all, campaign finance reform, and an immediate end to foreign war funding. The donor class relies on a very specific playbook. When voters demand working-class investment, political elites deploy culture war smears to force everyone back into partisan silos. But when you look at the facts on the ground, working-class voters across the spectrum are reacting to the same structural pressure. corporate control over public policy, inflated living costs, and foreign military interventions that deliver zero return for everyday communities. When conservative commentators start defecting from party loyalty and progressive primary candidates overcome 10-to-1 spending disadvantages, it proves that money in politics is not invincible. The establishment's scare tactics are losing their grip because people can see the receipts. If you believe that politics should be about people over profits, truth over access, and holding every leader accountable regardless of their party, subscribe to The Honest Perspective. I'm Neil. That's The Honest Perspective, and that's where I'll leave you.